He was sitting on the front steps of my house when I came home. Not standing, but sitting with his jacket still on and his hands hanging between his knees. Just like he used to do when he was a teenager and something had gone wrong. But he was 41 years old now. Beside him was a hockey bag. A garbage bag filled with his belongings. And my 5-year-old grandson, Ollie, asleep against his shoulder. I turned off the car and walked toward them. "Get inside," I said. He looked up at me with tears in his eyes. "Mom." "She changed the locks," he whispered. "I heard you," I said. "Get inside." I picked up the bag while he carried his son into the house. "My name is Francis. I am 64 years old and I live near Ottawa, Canada. I spent 30 years working as a paralegal, with nearly 2 decades focused on residential real estate and tenancy matters. I am not a lawyer, but I know property laws very well. My daughter-in-law did not know that. My son Kit had been married for 6 years. He and his wife had been together for 9 years and had a son named Ollie. 3 years earlier, they had bought a house together. Both of their names were on the title. That detail would become very important. Their marriage had been struggling for about a year. There were no huge fights. They simply grew apart. Kit suggested counseling. His wife agreed at first but stopped after 1 session. Eventually, she told him she wanted to separate. Kit accepted that and asked only that they handle everything calmly, especially because of Ollie. She agreed, but her mother became heavily involved. I have met her many times over the years. She was not a cruel person, but she often interfered in things that were not her business. One Tuesday evening, Kit picked up Ollie from daycare and came home. His key did not work. Neither did the back door. The locks had been changed. His wife was not answering her phone. And his mother-in-law's car was sitting in the driveway. He stood outside his own home for 20 minutes holding his son's hand before he called me. When I saw him on my front step, I was angry, but anger would not solve anything. Experience had taught me that panic makes people make mistakes. I knew exactly what had happened, and I knew there was a legal way to handle it. That night, after Kit and Ollie went to sleep, I sat in my office and made a list. The first thing I knew was that Kit had rights. His name was on the title of the house. That meant he was a legal owner and could not simply be locked out without proper legal action. The next morning, I sat with him and reviewed everything. I asked for mortgage records, purchase documents, and proof that he had been paying for the home. He had them. I also learned that his mother-in-law had given them $10,000 when they bought the house, but it had been clearly written as a gift, not a loan or ownership investment. I reminded Kit that I was not giving legal advice because I was retired and not a lawyer. He needed a real lawyer, but I told him one thing clearly: you have rights. I contacted a former colleague who was now a family lawyer. She asked 2 questions. Is his name on the title? Does he have proof he contributed financially? The answer to both was yes. She agreed to meet him that same afternoon. After a 2-hour meeting, Kit finally understood his situation. The lawyer explained that the lock change was unacceptable and that action could be taken to restore his access to the home. She also explained that keeping things calm and protecting Ollie from conflict would help him greatly moving forward. A few days later, his lawyer sent a formal letter. The letter demanded that his rights as a co-owner be respected, that access to the home be restored, and that any parenting arrangements be handled legally and fairly. The letter also addressed the involvement of his mother-in-law and made it clear that she had no authority over the property. The next day, my daughter-in-law called Kit. She admitted that she had not understood how serious the situation was. Her mother had told her changing the locks was normal during a separation. She apologized and said things had gotten out of control. Kit did not yell. He simply said they would continue discussing everything through their lawyers and that he wanted a fair solution. Her mother never called. I do not think she was a monster. I think she saw her daughter hurting and decided to take control without understanding the consequences. She believed acting first meant winning. She was wrong. A week later, Kit moved back into his home. The marriage was still over, and the separation was not easy. There were difficult months ahead. Eventually, they created a proper parenting schedule with their lawyers. The house was sold, and the money was divided according to ownership. The $10,000 gift did not change anything because it had always been documented as a gift. Today, Kit lives in a small apartment nearby. Ollie spends every other week with him. His room has hockey posters on the walls, and there is always a jar of goldfish crackers waiting in the kitchen because that is his favorite snack. My son is doing well. More importantly, my grandson has two parents who continue to love him. I tell this story because many people believe that the person who makes the first move automatically wins. That is not true. People often feel powerless because they do not understand their rights. They see a locked door and think it is the end. Sometimes it is only the beginning. The most important lesson I learned in my career is that knowing your rights and calmly protecting them is not about revenge. It is about standing firm when someone tries to take away something that legally and morally belongs to you. I still remember seeing Kit sitting on my front steps with his son asleep on his shoulder and his belongings beside him. It looked like a final judgment had already been made, but it was not the end of his story. It was only the moment when he decided to fight for his future the right way. And sometimes the strongest thing a person can have is not anger. It is certainty.